Hey, what's happening? My name is D, and welcome back to another episode of Book Reviews with the Regular Dude. Today, we're going to be talking about Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This is the first book I'm reviewing that isn't a fantasy novel, so I guess I'm a little out of my wheelhouse or a comfort zone or whatever. Yeah, I don't even know. What is this genre? Hold on a sec. So apparently Yellowface is R.F. Kuang's first venture into literary fiction. Somebody here says that it's a thriller. That is absolutely not true. There is nothing thrilling about this book. Meant to be a drama, dark satire. I mean, we're going to get into that a little bit, I think. I'm going to read the premise real quick. Then I'm going to do the 6 C's review that's kind of spoiler-free. Then I'm going to go through my notes. Athena Liu is a literary darling, and June Hayward is literally nobody. White lies. When Athena dies in a freak accident, June steals her unpublished manuscript and publishes it as her own under the ambiguous name Juniper Song. Dark humor. But as evidence threatens June's stolen success, she will discover exactly how far she will go to keep what she thinks she deserves. Deadly consequences. What happens next is entirely everyone else's fault. With its totally immersive first-person voice, Yellowface grapples with questions of diversity, racism, and cultural appropriation, as well as the terrifying alienation of social media. R.F. Kuang's novel is timely, razor-sharp, and eminently readable. That's the words of the Goodreads pitch, not mine. So I'm going to do a quick fire sort of 6 C's review that is spoiler free, and then I'm going to transition into just like reading the notes out that I took while I was reading this book. So lately I've been doing like a spoiler free 4 C's review where I analyze 4 different aspects of a story, which is character, conflict, context, and craft. And so I'm going to do that, but I'm adding 2 extra C's, commentary and comedy. And for some reason I feel the need to kind of just give this quick disclaimer that the name of this series is Book Reviews with a Regular Dude, which is to imply that I don't take this super seriously, or rather, I don't take myself super seriously. Like, I'm not a scholar. I'm not an academic. I'm just some fucking guy on the internet. I'm not an authority on literature. So sometimes when people really like something and they get mad at me, I think they're taking me more seriously than I take myself, and that's just making you look foolish. Hey, what's happening? It's Editing D just cutting in real quick. So after I filmed this video, I made a TikTok/YouTube Shorts where I said that I didn't like this book because I found the characters so unlikable. And people responded to that by saying, well, you're not supposed to like the character. That's the point. I just think that's such a nothing response. Like, it would be like if my white friends were like, I don't like laksa because it's so spicy. And I went, yeah, well, it's supposed to be spicy. Like, what are you trying to accomplish by saying this? You know what I mean? Like, am I supposed to go, oh, well, if that's the way it's supposed to be, then it's brilliant. No, I know that that's what it's supposed to be. I just don't like it. I get the bit. I don't think it's funny. I'll get more into it in the video, but I don't really think that this story needed to be told. And I don't think that the commentary is saying anything other than like, hey man, look at this shit. Because it is just like, hey, look how shitty this person is. All right, bye. And I don't see the point of that. But like, if you love this book, you find it hilarious or compelling or interesting, that's awesome. I don't agree, but we can just have different opinions. And I guess the point that I'm trying to add to this video by interjecting here is that just because someone doesn't like something doesn't mean that they don't get it, and it's not your responsibility to explain something to people. It's really presumptive to see someone express an opinion or an interpretation of something that we enjoy or something that we've also experienced and say, well, they didn't come to the same conclusion as me. They just don't get it. And if I tell them, and if I explain to them my interpretation of it, then they'll see the error of their ways and then what, take down the video or make a new video saying I was wrong about it and, it turns out that this thing is brilliant. I just think that it's kind of almost arrogant to think if someone doesn't like something, they just don't get it. I get it. I get the point of Yellowface. I don't think it's a point that needs to be made. I hope they get it right above their collarbones. You don't get the little eyes like right here. Be sexy as hell. Anyways, back to the video. Okay, let's start with character. Because this is like first person, we only spend time in the one point of view. The only character that we really get to know is Juniper Hayward. Juniper Song Hayward, if you're nasty. And like, this character is profoundly unlikable but that is sort of the point. I don't know if this character is characterized well. There's something kind of flat and cartoonish about how self-unaware this character is. Like, she's almost giving Michael Scott, but evil. Like, Michael Scott from The Office is, I think, a good character he's exactly as he's supposed to be, and he does have a sort of, like, growth, and he becomes, like, a good person. And I think Juniper Song, who fucking cares? That character definitely has a growth, but it's more of like a descent into madness and becomes worse as the story progresses, I think. And so, like, but there's still something just sort of like there's a lack of like humanity to her character where she's only shitty. There's never any good moments. There's never any whatever. It's she's just a bad person. When most villains, I think I find most villains compelling when there's like a humanity to them or there's a dynamic to them. I don't necessarily need every villain to be an anti-hero where they're absolutely convinced that they're doing the right thing, but they're doing the wrong thing or something like that, you know. I'm a big fan of Jujutsu Kaisen, the anime and manga, and there's a couple characters that are just shitty for the sake of being shitty. And I think that those are really compelling villains too, but it is hard to be in that type of character's point of view for an entire book. So again, like, I think that this character is sort of like evil Michael Scott with a corruption arc as opposed to like a growth arc or becoming a better person arc or something. I forget the term. Somebody dropped like a whole ass English 10 paper into my comment section last time I talked about arcs. But yeah, so like she is kind of shitty for the sake of being shitty, and there's just something sort of lacking in this character. None of the other characters feel fleshed out either. Like, they don't feel like real people to me. None of these characters feel real, which is, I think, kind of funny because it's the first book that I'm reviewing that's set in the real world, and I think probably the first piece of fiction that I've read that takes place in the real world in a long time. And these characters don't feel as real to me as characters from like the Shades of Magic series or fucking the aliens from the Wayfarer series by Becky Chambers. Becky Chambers. Or is it Rebecca Chambers? Fuck, hold on. It's Becky Chambers. I was right. And again, I'll get more into it in the spoiler part, but I also I hate this character. Like, there's nothing redeemable or enjoyable or funny about this character. This isn't even like a profoundly unlikable person who ends up in funny situations or enjoyable situations. She just sucks, and you just kind of watch her suck. So let's move on to conflict. And, you know, conflict is how a plot moves forward, and I think that this plot does move forward. And while I wasn't emotionally invested in what was going to happen because I didn't give a fuck about this character, and I didn't think that I was going to see her get the comeuppance that I think she deserves, like, I just sensed that from the jump. I was sort of like, I wonder how she's going to get herself out of this one a lot of the time. Even when she's kind of facing internal conflict and self-reflecting, there are times she reminded me a lot of Juniper Song Hayward reminded me of some of the people that I've seen on Book Talk who end up in the middle of like some Book Talk drama, like the Book Talk drama of the week or something. And I've always been like, I would love to know how you connect the dots you've connected and how you get to these things. And so being in this person's perspective, I thought would be fascinating, but I was still like, I just straight up don't understand how you've connected these dots or how you see things this way. I don't understand how you think. Being in your head for the length of this book did not help me understand how some of these types of authors and book fans think, right? I did not feel any empathy towards this person throughout any of the conflict, but I was kind of like, all right, like, what's going to happen next? So I was like, I can't say I didn't care at all, but like, if you took, like, if there was a caring scale of like 0 to 10, you know, 0 being, oh, I literally don't care, and 10 being like, this is the only thing that matters, I would give it like a 3 on the caring scale. Maybe I'm going to keep that. That might be a useful device for future conflict discussions. Moving on to context, which is, world building and politics, like what is this world and who has the power? And I guess the short answer is, it's the real world, so it sucks. But that would be a cop-out. I guess, like, this is sort of a look at the publishing world, which I don't know anything about, right? Like, I don't know anything about traditional publishing. I know a little bit about indie publishing. I indie published a couple of chapbooks. I have some friends who are like querying agents right now, but that's kind of all I know. All I know is that I would never do that. I think that's like, I don't have the patience for it, but that's a different conversation. So yeah, we're getting a look at the traditional publishing world, and I think how, in a sense, like you're not really getting a real sense of how like bigoted the publishing world probably is, because you're kind of in like this white person's perspective the whole time. I mean, I guess like racially bigoted. I don't really know what misogyny looks like in the publishing world at all. I'd be fascinated to learn more about that, like if there's articles or like a nonfiction book that discusses that. I think that'd be a fascinating thing to read. To be honest, this just kind of felt like the book version of like those movies about Hollywood, or like Wolf of Wall Street, where it feels sort of glamorized and cartoonishly villainized and very stylized. So this didn't feel real to me. Like, I didn't walk away from reading this book and think, wow, I really learned something about publishing, And I guess I'll get more into this when I talk more about like the commentary part of this spoiler-free review. But yeah, it just kind of felt stylized, and it's like, oh yeah, people in big companies are kind of shitty in the entertainment industry. No matter what medium we're talking about, it's kind of a scam to distract the working class from how shitty their lives are. I could have told you that. And then, let's talk about craft. I've said it before, but it just, nothing jumped out at me one way or the other. So it's kind of like, I don't know, the lack of flavor is a flavor in and of itself, I guess. But I don't really know if I could say that this is like R.F. Kuang's writing style, because it does feel like we're just kind of in this white lady's head the whole time, and R.F. Kuang isn't really like being herself telling this story, so I don't know if her authorial voice really shines through in this. Like, I have no idea, because I've never read anything else. This book kind of simultaneously makes me want to read more R.F. Kuang books to see if I'll like those, like Poppy War or Babel. Is that the other one? And also, I never want to hear this author's name again. And that's the most tension that I felt because of Yellowface. It wasn't through the conflict. And then really quick, somebody told me that this was supposed to be a comedy, or a dark comedy, or dark satire. And like even the Goodreads thing said that it's dark satire. And I think, okay, if it's comedy, it fails because nothing's funny. Like there's no joke here. Like, if this is alt comedy and this is some Andy Kaufman type shit, then maybe you could be like, oh yeah, I guess it's funny that I wasted my time reading this book and kind of nothing happens. But yeah, no, it's not funny at all. And I think that a lot of people don't understand satire. I'm not about to mansplain satire, but I do think that there's a misunderstanding of what it is and what it's for, especially like on TikTok, where you see someone doing something brazy or super offensive or just really out of pocket and harmful, and then call it satire. And I think that this veers too close to reality to be effective satire. And again, it's not funny, but I guess me saying that it veers too close to reality to be effective satire moves us straight into the sixth C, commentary. I don't really know what the point of this commentary is, because I think anybody who would get the point of what's being said, or see the truth that R.F. Kuang's trying to show, would just be frustrated the whole time because they know people like this, or they're already well aware that people like this character, Juniper Hayward, exist. Like, they don't care, it's like, it's kind of stating the obvious to them, I think. And then the people who are just like Juniper Hayward, the people who are having like a mirror held up to them, don't have the critical or regular thinking skills to see how shitty Juniper Hayward is, see those things in themselves, and then self-reflect and make a change for the better. So I don't really know who the statement is for, or what the point of it is. And I think that it kind of fails in making these commentaries, because I don't know R.F. Kuang, but I feel like the conversation, like whenever there's a chance for like the Asian American characters to like talk, they're kind of just the villains in the story, even though this is also, or they're the antagonists, because I'd say that Juniper Hayward is the villain. This is definitely like a villain origin story, I would say. I almost said village origin story, but I meant villain. But like, I just think that anytime like people of color have dialogue at all in this book, they're not given an opportunity to really like discuss things. They just call her a bitch. And like, I think because of the lack of conversation about like why is diversity being pushed, or why are things the way that they are, or even like this idea that this author thinks that the only reason she's not successful is because she's not diverse or whatever. There were times to have conversations there and go deep, and even if the character maybe those things don't sink in, the text could have commented on these things and had these discussions and given the reader something to think about, and it doesn't do that. So it's like, this is, if you think that Remember the Titans or The Green Book are really powerful commentaries about racism, then you might think that Yellowface is brilliant. But I just think them as kind of like basic, really shallow and pedantic.
Shallow and pedantic.
I agree. Shallow and pedantic.
I agree as well. Shallow and pedantic.
I think that's it for the spoiler-free review. You know, like I really don't think that this maybe I'll get into it more at the end, but I really just don't think that this book really says anything. I didn't find it entertaining. I just found it annoying and frustrating. And I'm like, it's one of those things where I think, you know, sometimes fantasy fans will say like, yeah, well, why would I want to, you know, watch a show or read a book about real life? Real life is shitty enough as it is, or something like that. And I feel this is kind of like the kind of book that would make someone think that. It's like for me personally, it's like, oh, I'm related to racist white ladies like this. I don't need more of this shit in my life. Or like, oh, like I just need to open up TikTok, go to Book Talk, I will find like 9 Juniper Haywards like that. And so it's like, this isn't interesting to me. Like, I guess it's like, oh, what if them got a book deal? But I'm like, but they fucking do, you know? It's like, whatever. So I don't know. Like, and I'm not saying that it's not good because there's no dragons or some shit. Because I think that's not like, you know, some of my favorite anime aren't fantasy. They're like real, or not, they're not real, but they're like realistic, you know, like Buddy Daddies is not a fantasy. It's like an action comedy or whatever. So I'm going to move on to the spoilery review part, where I just like kind of read the notes that I took down while I was reading this book. But before I do that, quick transition. If you like this channel and you want more content from me, make sure you consider subscribing to my Patreon. There you'll get an extra rant review video from me per month, as well as access to a live podcast, live comedy show type of thing, where I'm just hanging out with my patrons and we're just like yapping and talking about books and talking about life and just having a good time. You know, I'll be telling stories and yeah, we're just hanging out and it's chill. There's also like podcast versions of these videos, so if you want to listen to these videos while you're on the go, like driving to work or something like that, you have access to a private podcast feed, which also has some bonus podcasts that you won't hear anywhere else. You also gain access to, and this is my favorite part, my private Discord server, the Don't Fret Club Discord server, where people are talking about the books that they're reading, sharing memes, sharing their artwork, talking about their writing projects, a little bit of movie talk been happening recently. There's some video game talk, some D&D talk, all kinds of fun stuff. So, you know, if you're looking for more people to yap with about the things that you're interested in, the Don't Fret Club private Discord server is a place for that. So if any of that sounds interesting or exciting to you, make sure you consider subscribing to my Patreon. And if Patreon's not really your thing, I also have a second channel called Don't Fret 64, where I react to Haikyuu, and I'm also going to be talking about manga at some point in my life. All right, let's get into these notes. Main character opens up with a racist rant about how she's jealous of her Asian friend / colleague. It's not about her writing, it's about her. And then I didn't indicate this in my notes because I take these notes while I'm at work, and so I got to be a little sneaky with it. But I think she's explaining, like, she's trying to explain to herself why her more successful friend / colleague keeps her around and says, like, don't we all need someone we can treat as a punching bag? And I hate this character. It's like, no, and if you think that, you have a really shitty, fucked up view of friendship, dog. Like, I don't keep any of my friends around to be a punching bag. That's fucked up. And Lorianne, in case you're watching this, yeah, I kind of pick on your husband a little bit, but it's out of brotherly love. And if he asked me to stop, like, punching him, I would. But we've talked about it. He says he's cool with it because he's always wanted to have, like, an older black brother, which is a weird thing to always dream of. But, you know, whatever. Who am I to shit on somebody's dream? And Aiden, if you're watching, I just, like, bopped myself on the chin with my microphone for that bit. And then my next note is, I hate this school of thought about writing / creating. This character doesn't write because she likes writing. I ended up recording a follow-up podcast already, so it's funny because it's a follow-up, but I recorded it before I filmed this, talking a little bit more about this, so I'm not going to get into it, but yeah, that was my note. And then Juniper says something about wanting to wear her friend Athena's skin as big colonizer energy. And then my next note just says, I love Athena. I have no idea what was being said, like, at all. And then I think at this point they've gone back to Athena's apartment and they're just, like, hanging out and drinking. And then, like, this is the first time they're, like, properly just chilling as friends, even though they've known each other since college, which I guess is, like, I don't know, 10 years? I don't know how old they're supposed to be. No. They've known each other for, like, 9 years because they met first year of college, but I think they're under 30. I think they're, like, 27 or something. I don't remember. It's not that important other than, like, being successful before you're 30 is, like, a really big deal to this woman. So Athena's like, yo, how come we've never, like, hung out like this before? Just, as, like, proper friends. And then Juniper says, maybe we were afraid of how much we would like each other. What a fucking phony. Oh, my God. Ugh. And then I have no idea what happened. Like, I have no idea why I wrote this down, but I said, I don't know if I should keep this in the video. Athena can step on me. Yeah, so I just put that out there. Whoops. This is what I get for not reading premises before I read books. I should really change that, but just in all caps, oh my God, Athena dies, question mark. And then my next note is character doesn't really care that Athena is dead. What a bitch. All right, Pasty, no reason to resort to misogynistic language. I know you're mad. I know you're hurt and you want to get stepped on, but hey, there's no reason for you to talk like that, okay? You ever see a YouTuber white knight at himself? And then she likes the attention from the internet that she's getting because she was close to the famous author. Like, they weren't close. They were just, like, they're the kind of friends I feel like a lot of adults have a friend like this where you're just kind of like, you're friends because you put time in or whatever. And I also wonder about Athena, like in retrospect, I'll probably get into it later down the book, but I do wonder why Athena actually was friends with Juniper, because Juniper sounds like a shitty person. Like, I can't imagine after, like, being in this person's head, like, that she was actually pleasant to be around. You know what I'm saying? So I do wonder why they were friends. Like, I do wonder that. For both. Like, again, after reading the whole thing, I'm like, why were you friends? Like, why did you keep saying yes to hanging out? And why did you keep inviting her to things? It was weird. Maybe she was just lonely, but, like, I was free. I was available. I would love to go to anywhere. To the moon and back. Anyways, so then Juniper goes to Athena's funeral and she leaves the wakes early and says, I can only take so much pungent Chinese food and people who can't or won't speak English. Fuck you. Like, but like, for real, fuck you. That is, I hate it when people say shit like can't or won't speak English. Like, if it's not your default language, you shouldn't have to speak, especially when you're around your own people. Like, fuck off, Like, if you're an English speaker, right? You're living in a country or a place where the English ain't the main language, you're going to default to English, especially if you're around other English speakers, even if y'all all know the language that's more commonly spoken wherever you at. As soon as you're around your own people, you're gonna speak English. It's the same shit with a different language. Fuck you. And for real, like, I know that Chinese food can sit kind of heavy sometimes, especially like the American Chinese food or whatever. But like, it don't smell that bad. And I don't think I want to be friends with somebody who don't like the smell of dumplings. And well, I really like Singapore noodles, which I know is not necessarily Chinese food because it's Singaporean, but or maybe it isn't. I don't really know. But I love Singapore noodles. That's my fucking favorite. This is such a okay. This is a tangent. But this is necessary for lore about Old Deezy, okay? I went to high school within walking distance of this Chinese food restaurant, okay? And they had a lunch special where you could get Singapore noodles for, like, it's a whole tub of Singapore noodles for $5. And they would sell cans of soda for $1. So you could eat like a king for $6. And I would go there at least 3 times a week when I was in high school, for all of high school, and I still go there. And they still know that I'm going to order Singapore noodles. And the last time I went there, I was dressed kind of like this, but I was wearing a leopard print coat. And then I walk in, you know, looking the way that I look, and the owner was like, "Oh, D, you look like Rockstar." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." He's like, "How is singing going? Are you done working construction because you're making all your money singing?" And no adult believes in me more than this guy, because he's been rooting for my music career since I was in high school. Years ago, I'm talking to an A&R who grew up in the same city that I did, which is not Vancouver proper, but we grew up in the same city. But she's like a big deal. Right now, she's in LA. She's out here killing it, and she's just an absolute legend. Fucking stunner, amazing woman. And we're talking, and she's trying to help me with my career or whatever. And I bring up that I used to go to this Chinese food place all the time. And she's like, "Oh, I love that place. Yeah, that place on blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that place is great." And she's like, "Crazy story. When I was out in Toronto, I was living in Toronto for a little bit, doing this whole like killing it in my career thing. Lucky." She mentioned that she was from the city that we're from. And someone's like, "Oh, have you ever been to this restaurant? It's called this." And it's like a national landmark, but it's this hole-in-the-wall place in the middle of like one of the worst cities in British Columbia. And then I guess I didn't take note of the fact that June stole Athena's unfinished manuscript off of her typewriter or whatever. But then my note is June decides to fuck around with her friend's last manuscript, basically colonizing it. Oh my God, fuck this. Her stolen book gets picked up for big money, and she's getting off on the success that other people are jealous. Like, she's like telling herself that other people are jealous. And I genuinely wonder if that's even true. I wonder if some of this is like her getting off on their jealousy, but it's fabricated and it's all in her head. Because it's also not a reliable narrator, you know? Like, you can't rely on people like this. It's funny because my notes aren't even like necessarily commentary. It's just rage. I know what you're thinking, thief, plagiarizer, and because everything bad has to be racially motivated, racist. And my comment is just, oh my God, fuck you. And like, no, not every bad thing has to be racially motivated. But when white people do shitty things to people of color, or if able-bodied people do shitty things to disabled people or people with disabilities, men do shitty things to women, that's going to be called into question, you know, like, and I don't know. I think that even if that wasn't racially motivated, because there's this part of me that doesn't really think that the theft was, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it was. I think that the whitewashing and the colonizing and the like taking the culture out of the manuscript was racially motivated. Or was an act of racial violence at the very least, like racial literary violence. I don't think anything that this person does is racially motivated in the sense of like she doesn't have a white hood. It's racially motivated in the sense of like I think even somebody like really pushed back on something that I said in my Kate Corain video where they said that Kate Corain's actions were absolutely racially motivated. And again, I don't think it is in the sense I don't think it's conscious. You know what I mean? I think a lot of like oppressive, hateful behavior, whether we're talking about racism, misogyny, transphobia, or homophobia, or ableism, or anything like that. I think it is motivated, but it's not a conscious thing. And that's what I was trying to say, is that I genuinely don't think that this person's actions are racially motivated at the front of their mind. You know, because I've had people throw coffee at me and call me the N-word. That's racially motivated. When I started my anime account, I got a bunch of people calling me the N-word and fat shaming me and calling me all kinds of like slurs. That's racially motivated. That's front of mind. But sometimes when people do these kind of fucked up racist things, it's not front of mind. And that's what I was trying to say. I don't know where I was going with that. I hate this character. And I told people in my Discord that I hope she dies a death by 1,000 cuts. And spoiler alert, that doesn't happen. And that is my biggest critique of the book, is that she should have died. She should have died. She should have come back to life so that she could die again. Her rant justifying her actions is super wild, and her rant justifying her actions is super wild. Like, I guess it's like an internal monologue, but it's narration, whatever. And she's really worried about coming off as racist, but nobody within the text has even whispered that word. So, like, that's your internal conscious being aware that what you're doing is racist. I wrote this in all caps, so I must have been really pissed off. Taking Athena's work felt like reparations for the things Athena took from me. Fuck this character, man. And like, okay, in the moment, I didn't know what she was talking about. So I'm just like, she succeeded and you didn't. That she didn't take nothing from you because you're not owed success. Just because you have, like, this, here's a hot take, right? Just because you have dreams doesn't necessarily mean that the universe owes you those dreams. If you accomplish them, if you get those dreams, that's dope most of the time, unless you dream of something fucked up. So you can like dream of being a published author. You can dream of being a famous musician, a movie star, accomplished director, whatever. Star athlete. I don't fucking know what your dreams are. What are your dreams? Throw those in the comments. Let's have a positive vision board of a comment section, you know? But God, the universe, whoever's running the show, they don't owe you your dreams, man. And I think the idea that somebody else having your dreams or having your success or having the success that you wish you had means they took it from you is incredibly childish and self-centered, those are defining traits for this character. And then even reading further and learning what she means by what Athena took from you, which I think I'll get into later because I think I took some notes on that plot point. But like, that thing that she took from this person did not, in my mind, lead to Athena's success. So while it was a shitty thing that Athena did, because Athena is not a good person either, I meant what I said earlier. I still don't think that it warrants, I don't think that because she did what she did, it led to her success. And that's almost arrogant in and of itself to think that this thing that she did led to everything else she accomplished, because, like, to me, that thing is a drop in the bucket. I don't know why I'm being coy about it. She stole, like, I did take notes on it, but basically she's like, Athena wrote a short story based off of something shitty that happened to June. And June's like, oh, so all this success that Athena's had since is because of that thing. It's like, nah, that's a stepping stone on the path to success, maybe. And that's being generous, because fuck you. And I'm not saying fuck you for going through the thing that Juniper Hayward went through, because that's shitty. And I've had friends who've been through very similar things, and that sucks. And also, I think that even that discussion in and of itself was kind of shallow, even though it's a really traumatic thing. So again, I don't think that this book is very successful at making comment. I don't think that R.F. Kuang has her finger on the world's pulse as much as she thinks she does. That's just a suspicion that I have. I don't know shit about her. I know my patrons told me that she grew up really wealthy and she went to Yale and shit. And that's, I think money can make you lose touch with how tough life can be sometimes. Like every rich people can have their struggles, the mental health and whatever too. That's true. But going through the process of colonizing and whitewashing Athena's work and removing the culture of it, taking out, talking about how Athena adding her culture is pretentious, and so she and her readers could feel smarter than they actually are. I swear that this character is my adoptive older sister if she were a writer. Shots fired. Whoops. I swear that if June doesn't die at the end, this book is trash. She doesn't die at the end, so I think this book is trash. And then I have this note. Humanistic nuance is such a milk cricket concept. And humanistic nuance was, I think, June's term for glorifying the white people in this historical the book is about World War One. The context story, I don't know what. Yeah, so there's like white people. It's a World War One novel about the Chinese Labor Corps, and June makes a lot of the white people come out as like looking good and all that stuff in true June Hayward fashion. So yeah, like that idea of like humanistic. Now, like to be fair, no, not to be fair. I don't want to be fair to June Hayward. But like I get that it is good to humanize characters or whatever. But if you're telling a story from the perspective of the oppressed, I don't think that people who are going through oppressed are being treated shitty. Like, and also I think that, you know, when you're looking at history and you're looking at history from this one perspective, I think it would be difficult to take the time to try to humanize these people and tell this story this way. And I think that in doing that, you're sort of watering down the history, because what is the point of the story you're trying to tell? But also, there's no point to the story that June Hayward's trying to tell other than she wants to be successful. That's the point of the story, is give me your money. Then my next note says, the first draft made you feel dumb. Maybe you're dumb, cracker. I was in my feels, man. I got a lot of notes, man. This is going to be a long-ass video. I'm sorry that I keep doing these long videos. I don't mean to. I don't like it either. I wish I could stop. I really do. Next note says, her descent into madness. It's not as psychopathic as it sounds. Yes, it is. Athena's mother had her moleskin notebooks for drafting and plans to donate them to some literary museum. And then June goes to her mom's house and manipulates her into like keeping them, and so no one can get the moleskins, go through her notes and see any similarities or drafts of the book that June has published or whatever. And I thought she was going to go there and steal them because, again, I think I was expecting this to be a little bit more out there and she would do wilder, more unhinged things than she actually ends up doing. But I still stand by, like, she is slowly slipping into madness, but it's not quite as out there as I thought it was going to be. And I think part of me was like, because I thought of satire and parody, that she would do like more out there things to kind of like be hyperbolic about it. But she doesn't do that. And there's part of me, it's like, this is just too, like, I think I've seen authors do too many things similar to this on Book Talk and on BookTube and shit. And I'm like, this is just something that probably already happened, you know? Then she's meeting with her, I think she's like having a call with her editor, with her big fancy indie publishing company. It's not one of the big five, but it's still pretty prestigious. She's getting defensive about being white when the company asks her about her positioning, like, you know, hey, are you even half Asian or something? And what is your positioning? Like, where are you from? That kind of thing. Like, just trying to figure out how the company can get ahead of justifying why they're putting out this book written about Chinese history by a non-Chinese person, which, smart, you know, you should try to get ahead of that, but she just gets defensive. It's like, why the fuck can't I write about it? Whatever, which is, it's so Book Talk. They decide to make her worldly, talk about like how she moved around a lot and all the places that she lived, and her mom's like kind of hippie phase or whatever. And they changed her pen name to Juniper Song instead of June Hayward. And they suggest that the company suggests that she get a sensitivity reader, and she's super offended by the notion, and she goes off and she kind of says that like sensitivity readers are bullshit, and she's like mad that some books were pulled, like projects were pulled because of the subjective opinion of some person. And I'm like, yeah, but that's what their job is. And if they're saying that there's problems and this needs to be re-examined or something like that, it's obviously me and this person would never agree if she were real, but she is real. Her name might not be June Hayward in real life, but there's like a million of these people online right now. Some of them might be commenting on this video right now or something. Yeah, so she's super offended by this, and then a editorial assistant recommends it and kind of like doubles down. It's like, I think it'd be really good to do this. This assistant is Korean. I don't know if I refer to that later. But yeah, so this and the reason that's relevant is because she's trying to advocate for the Chinese diaspora. And then the company's like, yo, can you do it? And she's like, well, I'm not Chinese, I'm Korean, but I still, trying to advocate for, Asians helping Asians, which, that's dope. And then June kind of is like, nah. They're like, well, I guess it's the author's call. And she's like, nah, fuck sensitivity readers. I don't need that shit. Fuck you. And then she's like, this editorial assistant's just jealous and really feels like she earned this success that she's experiencing, and kind of like it seems to me like she forgets that she stole it, but also can never forget that she stole it. And like she did, like she's like, I wrote it, I made it better, and all this stuff. And I'm just sitting there like, sure, you wrote around it and stuff, but you still stole the idea. Like, you don't have good ideas, but whatever. But really thinks that she earned it, and everyone who isn't as successful as she is because she stole something, she thinks everyone's like not as good as her, and again, descend into madness, and I hate her. She starts checking Goodreads reviews. Reviews are for readers. Don't fucking do that. Like, just don't do that. If you're like, that's not your feedback source, like reviewers are trying to let fellow readers know whether or not they should pick up the book based off of their opinions, like if R.F. Kuang was watching this video right here, right now, I'd be like, this isn't for you, like I'm not trying to help R.F. Kuang or any of the other writers that I've reviewed be better writers. That's not what reviews are for. That shit happens before the book gets published. And, maybe you can have someone on your team go through them and distill down the criticisms into something for you, but you shouldn't be cruising. Anyways, so she does that and she's shitty. And then she sees she gets a 1-star review, and it's from the editorial assistant who was pushing for a sensitivity reader. And so she lies to her editor and says that a friend sent it to her, and then gets the editorial assistant fired. Then June goes to a reading event, and she sees Athena, and I was like, oh, I guess that's a hallucination, I hope, because I was pretty sure this wasn't like a supernatural fantasy thing. Then June, nothing really happens there. June meets some other authors who are just as pompous as her. June read hentai when she was younger. I thought that was a funny detail. Well, I don't know if it's called hentai, if it's read, but it was tentacle porn. She read tentacle porn. And I don't know, I just thought that was like a funny detail. I don't know. It's weird that you hate Asian people so much, kind of like deep down, but you also read Japanese tentacle porn. I don't know, it's weird. Then she agrees to mentor some young writers because she wants to give back to the Asian American community, and has a session with a young writer who is Korean American, and the mentee asks if she's white, and it's just like, are you part Asian? Like, is that why you wrote about Asian history? And then June gets really frosty and defensive, like, yeah, I'm white. What's the fucking problem? And then she gets invited to speak at for a Chinese American association in Maryland. And my note here is, like, I guess the way she was talking about whether or not she would go and whether or not she would do this thing for free or whatever must have just rubbed me the wrong way, because all I said was she's so elitist and racist, I'm dying. Yeah, this book was bad for my health. This was traumatizing in some ways. She gets picked up by her escort, and her escort thought she was half Asian. Then she kind of gets like a side eye or whatever from this escort, and she's like just talking about how people are like being racist and reverse racism and all that stuff. And I'm just like, it's really obvious that this woman doesn't know what racism is or how it works. I said that with all caps, so I said it with my whole chest. Then my next note is, I need her to die. I need her to die. I need her to die. So I must have been pretty upset. So while she's doing this reading, doing this speaking event, she meets somebody whose uncle was part of the Chinese Labor Corps. And for a second, she has an epiphany and realizes that she's a jackass. And then my note is, I'm willing to bet that it's not going to last. And I was right. So I don't know who, but somebody owes me $5. Then she meets with a Hollywood production company and gets stars in her eyes, talks about taking over the world, and furthers her descent into madness. And then my next note is, somebody tweets the truth somehow. Like somehow they know that she didn't write this book. And my only note is good. And then her agent tells her not to worry about the internet controversy because, this Twitter account doesn't have any real evidence. And then my next note is, the literary colonizer, excellent burn past me, shows up to speak at a panel, and the other writers fucking hate her. And this one artist calls her out, and then her like two pompous author friends are in a group chat, and they're like just making fun of this woman's art and kind of enabling her to just kind of like brush off the criticism and be like, yeah, she's not good at art, so fuck her. And then my next note, I don't know what happened here, but my next note, she calls her niece a bitch. Oh yeah, she's got an 8-year-old niece. Who, I think she refers to her in her head as a basic bitch in the making or something like that. I'm just like, why do you hate everyone? Like, why do you have people in your life? Because you seem like such a miserable, horrible person to be around. Anyways, so she asks her brother-in-law who works in IT to track the IP address of the Twitter account who originally spread the rumor about her. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's illegal. That's a felony. And then she's like, okay, well, what if I made up like a website, got them to check it out, and then had you run this IP address? And he's like, that's super fucking sketchy. And she like manipulates her sister into forcing her husband to do it by saying that she's like worried for her physical safety. She's not. And then it turns out that it's Athena's fetishizing ex-boyfriend who I think that he knew about this project because he'd seen the notes. So when Athena dies, and then pretty shortly after, June comes out with this book that's based off something he knew that Athena was working on. He's like, oh yeah, this was stolen. And then there's like the similarities in the writing and all that stuff. So he's trying to blackmail her and get some money. And then she's like, nah, I recorded this whole thing. So he got cocoed. People always falling for the cocoa. So then things kind of blow over, and then June gets pressured by her agent to pitch a news story. So she like says she didn't mean to do this. She didn't want to do it, but she does. She fucking does it. She dips back into Athena's notes and writes something new. And then we get a flashback, and it's about a time when June might have been sexually assaulted, might have been roofied, and she was really traumatized by it. Like at first she's like, nothing really happened, and then it kind of fucks her up as time goes on. And the only person that I think she confides in is Athena, and then Athena writes a short story basically quoting June or whatever. And again, that's shitty. That's a shitty thing to do, and I understand the hurt there. And like I can't imagine how angry I would be if somebody took my life experience, my pain, and my trauma, and turned it into something for profit, right? Like I understand how that could burn. I don't think that Athena profited off of it because they were in college for that. But to say that all So I get that. And also to say that, you know, this character's success was based off of that one short story is, I think, kind of arrogant in and of itself. Is messy. I don't think that the commentary on sexual assault or gender-based violence was very effective in this section. I'm not one to speak on it, you know, with any real, like, take all that with like a bag of salt, right? Because I'm a fucking dude and I've never experienced that. I have friends who've gone through shit like that, but I also understand, like, you know, if somebody like took my adoption story and wrote a book about it, I would be pretty pissed. And I would want my revenge, but I also wouldn't, you know, steal their notes and pretend I was a different race. It'd be really hard for me to pretend I was a different race, though. So then she gets busted for plagiarism. This time it's like way harder to deny because she took like the first paragraph of something that June wrote in a workshop and used it to write a novella. So it was like a springboard, and so then she gets busted, and I think this really kills her reputation, like really kills. And then I don't even really remember what was happening, like if she was like, oh, I need to write a third thing, and this time definitively prove that she can write without stealing from Athena. But she decides that because she's already, like, she's like, oh, maybe I can write about these other cultures and appropriate these other, she doesn't say appropriate because she doesn't think that what she's doing is appropriative. She thinks that anyone can write about anything. And here's the thing. Can and should are two different things. But then she's like, but I have all this like knowledge about Chinese history now, so I'm just going to keep, you know, writing about Chinese people. And so she like goes to a Chinatown. I don't remember where she is for this part, but it's not really that relevant. But she goes like looking to talk to Chinese people to like mine their lives for material to write about. I think she gets called out by the owner of this Chinese food dumpling place that she's in. So that was kind of shitty, and it just kind of proves like, yeah, you're bad. And then she gets a job or like a gig teaching like a summer school sort of thing for high schoolers, and sexualizes a student, which I thought was pretty creepy and a weird detail. She also sexualized some college students, but I did the math in that one. If she's 27 and these dudes were like 22, I was like, that's less creepy. This time it was very creepy, and I didn't appreciate that. So the first time goes well, and then the next time, she overhears the students talking because I guess they Googled her and found all these like allegations against her about the plagiarism and stealing from Athena Liu and all this stuff. So she decides to be the villain that we all know her to truly be, and bullies this one student, like the best writer in the class, who's also the one who like found the allegations, and just bullies her and picks it apart and basically makes her cry, and then is just like not even slightly remorseful for it, and is pretty happy that she did it, and probably traumatized this kid, you know, and just does not care because she's a self-righteous, self-centered, horrible person. So then she quits the gig early, and decides to go visit her mom. She lies to her I guess boss, and is like, yeah, my mom's sick and I'm sad and I'm gonna go see her. So she goes and sees her mom, and her don't see eye to eye. They don't get along, and her mom doesn't value what she does. Like, she doesn't value being a writer. She doesn't think that writing is the whole world, and June thinks that writing is the whole world, and that's you know what. So she has like this meltdown and talks about how she'll never be remembered and she'll be forgotten. She won't leave a mark on the world. And I wrote, like, I need to self-reflect, because this was a part where I was just like, I'm an artist too. And I just really, I was angry and I rolled my eyes, but then I was like, maybe I'm being hypocritical. And that's basically like what my follow-up podcast is about. So like, patrons, I already went off on a tangent about a Chinese food restaurant when I was a kid. So basically I went off for like, I think a half an hour talking a little bit about this school of thought on creativity. I'm not going to do it again, but yeah, patrons, you can go listen to that if you want to. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. But just when I think maybe I've reached the capacity for how much I can hate a character, she does something worse. I hate this character more than I hate Holly Chase from The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. So Jennifer decides that she's going to write sort of like a memoir about the whole thing and kind of like tell the truth, but also mix in some lies or whatever. That'll be her third thing. And I wrote, I swear to God, if this is Yellowface, I'm going to throw my phone into the ocean. And then an Instagram post from Athena. So it's like Athena's account starts trolling June, and she thinks it's the ex, but it's not. And she thinks that there's a conspiracy against her and something else is going on. And I was like, I don't really know where this is going to go. Because again, I didn't like look up anything about this book before I started reading it. So I was like, are there ghosts? Because I knew that R.F. Kuang had written like fantasy type shit before, right? So it's like, this is weird. I don't know what's going on. But then it turns out there's something else was actually going on. And so the editorial assistant, who June doesn't even really remember and doesn't remember doing anything wrong by her, even though she got her fired and then ruined her career, because once you're on June's former editor's blacklist, like apparently it's really hard to get a job in publishing, which I think is bullshit. I think the idea that you getting fired for 1-star reviewing a book on Goodreads is stupid. But I don't know if that's actually happened to anybody, but if it has, that's bullshit. I'm sorry. But yeah, so Candace hacked into Athena's Instagram, unfollowed everybody, or blocked all the followers or something like that, and then manipulated June into confessing like that what she did to Athena, like stealing the book and all that stuff. Candace, the editorial assistant, it filmed all of it. She had a bunch of cameras. June's like, well, it's not my fault. All the industry wants is diversity. All they want is diversity. And I really don't know. Like, I don't know if you could look at the industry. I know that somebody went viral on Book Talk for saying something really similar because she like queried an agent, and an agent said that people only want people of color. I'm like, but you can't look at all the books coming out from traditional publishing and be like, yeah, it's all diverse. It's all, a rainbow, an ethnic rainbow. Because it's not. Like, how can you... I don't understand how you can think this. But then Candace tries to spell it out for her and be like, you query people and say, sorry, we already have an Asian author. And it's like, I wrote, like, I promise that even as Candace spells this out and says, like, this is actually how it is for people of color, it's not going to sink in. And I was right. So then she attacks Candace, thinks about killing her while she's beating the shit out of this lady. First she's like, give me the cameras. And then she's like, well, she won't give me the cameras. I'll just kill her because I'm physically larger than she is. And like, that is such a, like, there's layers to that shit that I don't think R.F. Kuang really meant for there to be. But the idea that, like, when a white person doesn't get their way, they're going to resort to violence that is the most commentary I think that this book really does. And it's not even dwelt on again. And this person doesn't even feel bad for the fact that she starts to think, I'm thinking about killing someone, or I thought about killing someone. That's wild. But then Candace, like, slips away, kicks her in the stomach, and actually knocks her off a flight of stairs because they, like, met in a park, like, by a staircase outside or something like that. I was like, oh, sick. She's telling this whole story from hell where she belongs. No, she, like, wakes up in a hospital, and Candace, like, called her an ambulance and then dipped. Everyone thinks it's an accident, and Candace has decided to... Basically, it doesn't matter, like, how good a writer Candace actually is. She's going to tell this whole story about what June did, and that's Yellowface. And I'm so upset. And then June's like, well, in order to tell this story truthfully, she's going to have to admit that she, like, hacked into Athena's accounts and drove me crazy. And I have a counter narrative, and the truth doesn't matter. And marginalized people think that they can do whatever they want because they're marginalized. And I'm like, oh, fuck you, fuck off, fuck all the way off, and then fuck off again. Her third book will be a counter narrative to whatever Candace writes and just doesn't learn a lesson, and that's the end of the book. So was it good? I don't know. Here's the thing about lit fic that I think I'm not really gonna be good at reviewing literary fiction, because I think once the voice is like just somebody from here now talking, I don't have a point of reference for it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, yeah, I mean, like, those are words. the grammar, that's in the right order, I guess. But at the same time, you know, if the protagonist talks like me or talks like some other sort of slang sort of dialect of English, then grammar doesn't matter as much, right? You know, or something like that. I don't know if I can talk about like the crafting or character arcs of literary fiction, but I also haven't read a lot of lit fic, so I can't say that now. But I don't think this was good. You know, I wasn't entertained at all. I wasn't really captivated. I wasn't interested, and I don't think that this is a good. I don't think this is a story that needed to be told, and I don't think that what is being said was actually said. You know, like I don't think that whatever was meant to be said was properly conveyed or communicated, and so I don't think it was good. Did I enjoy it? No, not at all. I hated every second of this. It was a nightmare. It's time I'll never get back. And would I recommend it? No. Save yourselves. Don't waste your time on it. Oh my God, I hate this book so much. And again, it's like I can't say if it's bad because like the book's not for me, right? The same thing with like The Afterlife of Holly Chase. But I also don't know who this book is for because again, anybody who would agree that this character is racist and a bad person, they don't need to read this. They already know these kind of people suck, and they don't need to hear this person's story be told from this person's perspective because it doesn't help you cultivate empathy for them. You don't really see how their mind works better. You don't really see, like, you know what I'm saying? You know, there's no joke here. And I compared Juniper Hayward to Michael Scott. The thing about Michael Scott is, like, I don't think Michael Scott's a bad person. I think he's profoundly emotionally immature. And when he does these shitty things or does these silly, stupid things, and like gets into these awkward situations, the joke is the tension that he creates and the fact that he doesn't really learn a lesson, sure, but he doesn't do anything quite as malicious or terrible as what the character in Yellowface does. I can't recommend this. I just think that it's kind of like a nothing book, and it fails to effectively communicate the message that it's trying to. And I don't think that this is a character whose story needs to be told. The idea was R.F. Kuang going to hold up a mirror to the people that June Hayward represents. They won't get it. You know, so it's like, what was this even for? But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, especially if you made it to the end. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Special thank you to my super duper Don't Fret Club members. I might change it to Don't Fretters, I don't know. But anyways, special thank you to my super duper Don't Fretters. Yeah, I like that. Special thank you to my super duper Don't Fretters, Keisha and Knightsmith. Thank you so much for your support. You're helping me do what I want to do and make more content like this. Thanks again so much for watching. My name is D. Don't fret. I'll see you next time. Peace out.